So today we're digging into something pretty strange. A case where a really serious firearms charge filed against a man who was already under a domestic abuse injunction, well, it just vanished. How does that even happen? Our story kicks off right here with this incident report. So, on July 24th, 2025, a guy named Gregory Pittman gets taken into custody. And the initial charge? Violating a domestic abuse injunction. A court order specifically designed to keep a victim safe. But wait, it gets even more serious. When they filed the probable cause affidavit after his arrest, it included this major felony charge, possession of a firearm by a prohibited possessor. See, the injunction flat out forbade him from having any guns. So on paper, this looks like an open and shut case. Right? He was arrested, the evidence was documented, the charge was filed. So why did it just, poof, go away? That's the big question here, and that's what we're going to try to unravel. Let's start with the official story. Okay, so the first place you'd look for answers naturally is the prosecutor's office. And the official line was that the case was, well, just too messy to win. And you know who else wanted answers? The victim in the original domestic abuse case. She actually met with the district attorney, Ian, trying to get some clarity on why he was just dropping the most serious charge on the table. And the DA, well, he didn't mince words. He basically said the witness testimonies were all over the map. From his point of view, there was no way a jury would convict someone when all the key witnesses couldn't even agree on the basic facts. And this really lays out the chaos the DA was looking at. See, for the charge to stick, he had to prove the gun was possessed during the time the injunction was active. But just look at this mess. The defendant says, oh, that was like a year ago. One witness says it happened during the injunction, but then another says it was after for a vet bill, and a fourth witness claims it was way before the injunction for a lawnmower. It's a total mess. So you see the problem, right? The bottom line for the DA was, this case was unwinnable. He's not saying the guy's innocent. He's saying, look, the evidence I have is so weak, so contradictory, I can't prove this beyond a reasonable doubt in court. So he dropped it. But believe it or not, the messy witness stories, that was only part of the problem. The investigation itself was also tangled up in this web of bureaucracy and jurisdictional confusion. And that just added a whole other layer of complexity to everything. Okay, so get this. Turns out we're not even talking about one gun here. There were two. There was a rifle case investigated by the Price County Sheriff's Office, and that one was successfully prosecuted. But the pistol case, the one we're focused on, that was handled by the local Phillips Police Department, and that's the one that got dropped. Two guns, two different police agencies, and two completely different outcomes. And when the victim tried to get answers from the county sheriff's office, what did they do? They pointed her right back to the city police. Yeah, it's that classic bureaucratic runaround, right? Each agency just points a finger at the other, saying it's their problem. But this whole runaround, this maze of confusion, it actually led the victim to a discovery that was, frankly, a bombshell. A really disturbing discovery about the specific officer who handled the pistol investigation from the very beginning. The officer in charge of investigating the pistol case was a man named Connor Newman of the Phillips Police Department. And you're going to want to remember that name, because at the exact same time all this was happening, Officer Newman had some very serious legal problems of his own. So just as this pistol case is kind of dissolving into thin air, there's a whole other investigation starting up, an internal one, focused on the conduct of Officer Newman himself. And we're not talking about some small slap on the wrist here. This investigation led to multiple felony charges against a sworn police officer. We're talking misconduct in office, for exceeding his authority, for acting inconsistently with his duties, and for falsifying official records. And this quote from his own confession just lays bare how deep the misconduct went. Newman admitted to having a sexual relationship with an informant while on duty and then repeatedly falsifying his daily activity reports to cover up where he was and failing to document what he was actually doing. So that just changes everything, doesn't it? It forces us to ask a totally new and much more disturbing question. Was the pistol case really dropped because the witness stories were messy? Or was it dropped because the officer in charge of the investigation was himself corrupt, compromising the entire case from the start? So you gotta ask yourself, how does something like this even happen? How can a case be so badly handled, possibly even compromised by a corrupt officer? Well, both the district attorney and the chief deputy pointed to a much bigger systemic problem in their region.
I mean, the DA was surprisingly blunt about it. He explained that in a rural county like theirs, with limited resources and not nearly enough officers, it is incredibly hard to build solid cases. And, well, a lot of stuff just falls through the cracks. And to really hammer home how bad things are, he told this absolutely wild story. The staffing crisis is so severe that the governor of the state has to personally get on the phone and cold call lawyers, practically begging them to move to the area and take the job as a prosecutor. So you've got a system that's just completely stretched to its limit. When you're understaffed, under-resourced, and totally overwhelmed, you create the perfect environment for complex cases to just get dropped and for official misconduct to fester without anyone noticing. Which brings us back to where we started. This all began with a simple question about a disappearing charge, and it ended with a corrupt officer and a justice system teetering on the brink of collapse. It really makes you wonder. When the system itself is this fragile, and the trust in the people meant to uphold the law is broken, what does justice even look like?